Welcome, everyone. This is Transrational Perspectives. My name is Noah Taylor, and I'm joined here by my friend and co-host.
Hello, my name is Sean Bryant. I have a PhD in International Peace, Conflict, and Development Studies, and I'm an assistant professor at a university in South Korea. Noah, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background?
Well, Sean, like you, I also have the same academic background, having studied both at the master's and the PhD level, peace and conflict studies in different formulations. I spent about 3 years working in India as a seminar leader in a peace and conflict studies program, and then about 5 years working as the academic director of the Center for Peace and Conflict Studies in Siem Reap, Cambodia. So Sean, can you tell us a little bit
And
about your...
Noah,
Okay.
oh yeah. Well, first, Noah, let's get into what do you want to do with this show? What is this Transrational Perspectives all about?
Well, I think that, the real impetus for this show is that in the field of peace and conflict studies, kind of largely defined, I feel like there are so many interesting conversations that we have amongst each other about really important topics. And I want a platform to bring this to a wider audience, but also as a way of building new connections based on these things that we find interesting. What do you think about where we want to go with this show?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, one of the ideas behind wanting to do this, the kind of like proverbial back of the napkin idea of you and me talking together and doing some kind of show or doing videos together, was thinking that you and I had really good conversations, and thinking, well, like, yeah, like I wish other people could join in on these conversations, and we covered so many different topics, and the nature of our, say, discipline of the peace and conflict studies, international peace and conflict studies, covers everything from like anthropology to psychology to the sort of big topics of it, of security and like geopolitics, um, but also things of just like our spiritual paths and feminism and the economy, environmentalism. All of these things are all intertwined in the human experience, that means that they're the topic of our research and our investigations and our teaching. And yeah, so I just thought that it would be great to have a forum to be able to do a few different things. On one hand, it would be what I would call a pedagogical purpose, meaning to have like learning materials for people who wanted to be interested in, say, peace and conflict studies or other topics, that could also learn from people like us who have studied it for a long time. Um, Secondly, to have conversations about topics that are coming to the surface, so that means like current events. And for me, often I would think when I hear the analysis or hear something reported on the news and hear that analysis, I would think, was it, well, from what I've learned from doing peace studies, what my colleagues would say, I thought that there's really something that we could add to the conversation. Um, and then the third thing is to, I know this is a bit of a cliche to use this term, but a deep dive to explore more, kind of unpack and look into the unfolding of different topics that are relevant for our research. So in a way, kind of doing like a master's class in transrational approaches to peace and conflict studies. Um, so Noah, is there anything like that you'd like to add or amend from that?
No, I think that's really where I want to go also. And I think that maybe as a good starting point, we have the proverbial question of what is peace and conflict studies? And it's something that I found amongst many people who are in this field, is that when you introduce yourself as having a background in this particular discipline, the first question you get is, well, what is peace and conflict studies? So maybe we can start with how we see that. You mentioned so many different concepts or many different parts of the discipline, the spiritual component, the contemporary social issue component, but also bringing together other disciplines such as economics and other aspects. So maybe we can start with a little bit of like, maybe not a deep dive right off, but what do you see as the field of peace and conflict studies, or what does this mean to you?
Yeah, for such a basic question, I feel like actually at a bit of a loss to have like a really kind of succinct answer to that. Without going like into too much detail of the history of it, the idea that peace is something that we need to study and learn about and do that in this formal, very rational academic setting is a project of the 20th century. And it emerges out of the disasters of modernity in the 20th century. You can think of many, but the big ones are of the concentration camps in the Second World War and the nuclear bomb. Those are like the big events of the 20th century that said, like, look, something's gone horribly wrong. War's gotten out of hand, and we need to do something. And there's this concerted effort of a movement to create a discipline of peace studies, to study it. So then, for me, now that I've gone through this journey of taking on that task of studying peace, there are many things I've learned about it. I think one of the things that I would say is it's learning about what is the good life. That's one way I've come to understand it. And I think that's a good starting point for the idea of many pieces, because it's very clear to say something, well, your idea of what a good life is very different than someone else's idea of the good life. It's like, well, yeah, I mean, that's the point, right? Because peace can be something that's kind of hard to argue against.
Right.
There's certain exceptions to that. Especially when you feel threatened, then we want to might be a hard sell to argue for turning the other cheek or for peace when you feel that's threat of security. It's like, I feel threatened, I feel hurt, and I'm going to want to come back to it. So and then that also opens, that simple definition also opens the door to all of the other things I mentioned off the top of, like the importance of the spiritual, psychological, anthropological perspectives, or of environmentalism and of the economics, because it's like, well, all of those things clearly factor into what is a good life. I mean, I want to be like a healthy environment, I want to be prosperous, I want to feel good spiritually, feel good like psycho-emotionally, and unless all of those things line up, there's going to be some part of my life, some part of my persona that's suffering or not happy or dragging its feet or is neglected, compartmentalized, forgotten. So taking it back to you, what's your take on?
It's weird.
It
As I was thinking about preparing for this talk today, I was like, oh, maybe I'll just kind of sit down and write out a definition of peace and conflict studies. And then I realized, despite having several degrees in this field, that it's really difficult to come to a succinct definition. And I think for me, what has been appealing about it, or the way that I perceive it, is more as a mode of thinking, or a framework for thinking about things that I don't understand. And, like you mentioned before, one of the weird things about studying peace and conflict is that you very rarely will find someone that is going to take the view that peace is a terrible thing, just on a very surface level definition, people generally would say that they prefer peace rather than conflict, and they prefer not having violence afflicting their lives rather than having violence afflicting their lives. But yet, the world seems to have a problem with conflict and a problem with violence. And so, how do we think about that? And growing up, I was always really interested in kind of integrative frameworks, ways of thinking beyond the realm of one discipline or another discipline. But I was always frustrated that they seemed to come to this point of being able to argue that, well, there's this perspective and there's that perspective, and so all perspectives are good and equal. So you're like, okay, well, that's important, but we don't really get to go very much further from that point. And what I saw in peace and conflict studies, and in particularly, which I'm sure we'll get to eventually, is the transrational approach, is that it is a way of integrating the other aspects of myself, the aspects that were interested in spirituality, the aspects that were interested in valuing the subjective nature of experience and not just that which I could perceive or understand rationality. And I think of peace and conflict studies as a way of moving into new ways of thinking, or a way of stimulating new ways of thinking. I mean, obviously, if the old ways of thinking and solving problems were to work, then we would have done it by now. So, I mean, I would see this as a call to how do we move forward in our thinking and our action to get towards the good life, or to get to what we understand as the good life. I want to talk a little bit about where I see us going in the future, what our future episodes might look like.
Yeah.
We're trying to make this show both for the general audience, but also for those with some familiarity with the field of peace and conflict studies. So we're going to weave around through exploring some of the foundational concepts of peace and conflict studies, and more specifically of the elicitive or a transrational approach. We're going to look at a bit about what does it mean to do peace and conflict studies, and hopefully we'll be able to talk to some other people in this field, and to get a sense of what their lived work of doing peace and conflict studies looks like. We also want to take some time to look at kind of current issues in the field of peace and conflict studies, or things that we find interesting, or maybe areas that have not been as deeply explored. Do you have any other things that I missed that we had planned on talking about in the future?
Not really, because that's exactly the things that you and I discussed. The only thing I might add is I would like to also, in the future, be able to bring in guests, like other perspectives, other than just the two of us, so that we don't become our own echo chamber for each other. But because we both studied in various international programs and worked in different countries, we have extensive network of people who are also working in peace studies, but also people working for different NGOs or practitioners and working in humanitarian aid. Those people who are working on the front line of conflicts and then I think that we can help bring their stories out and make them a learning experience for more people.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that that really sums up the spirit of the program that we're trying to create. So I think that can thank you, Sean, for joining us today, and thanks to all of our listeners, hopefully, that are out there, and that we'll see you again on the next episode of Transrational Perspectives.